Hey guys, Basement Horrors here, and I want you to close your eyes and imagine this. You're laying in bed, trying to fall asleep, but you just can't fall asleep. You've been trying for so long, you just can't. And then, you hear a little tap coming from the window next to you. What do? Well, here's what these people did. Number 1. I've been a fan of the subreddit for a while, and I have some stories that I'd like to share. So I thought that I'd post them here. When I was 12 to 14 years old, I used to sleep in the living room. My brother and I fought too much when we shared a room. My parents promised that they'd build onto the house eventually and give me my own room, but it couldn't wait. I moved all of my stuff into the living room. The living room was in the front of the house near the street, and it wasn't a busy one. We lived in the mountains. We were far away from civilization, but it was paved, so people drove by occasionally. It's a pretty safe area, and almost no one ever walks by here. Anyway, it was the middle of summer, and we had never had air conditioning in the house. We used to leave all the windows open all day and all night. It's not safe to do this, but it actually kept the house pretty cool even during the day if you use fans as well. And because no one ever passed by, it was pretty much no crime in my area, so we assumed that it was safe. Anyway, everyone was in bed, and I was trying to go to sleep. All the windows were open, including the one that faced the street that was less than a foot away from my head. But I couldn't sleep. I got this really creepy feeling like someone was watching me through the window next to my bed. I hadn't heard a noise, so I was pretty sure that I was overreacting. I was about 13 years old at this time and was a scaredy cat, easily frightened in the dark. So I figured that it was just something I had to shrug off. My mind was just playing tricks on me. But I couldn't, so I covered my head with the blanket, so if someone was staring at me, they couldn't see me anymore. I know, it's ridiculous logic. The window was open, so they could do all sorts of creepy things to me, much worse than staring. But all I was frightened by was the thought of eyes watching me during that time. I just wanted to block out the eyes from seeing me. My heart kept going faster, though. I still felt uneasy and could feel my breathing becoming labored. I kept trying to tell myself to calm down. I was breathing so fast that I started to wheeze. And then I realized that it wasn't me wheezing. I held my breath, and the deep breathing in and out, right next to my ear, kept going, even though I was no longer breathing. It was rapid and shuddering, less than 12 inches from my face, and I could still feel the eyes on me. His breathing was so loud now, I couldn't believe anybody could breathe that loudly. I still didn't want to admit to myself that someone might be there, so I just told myself that somehow I'd scared myself so badly that I was hallucinating, that somebody was staring at me and breathing really hard. I kept trying to talk myself down, trying to tell myself to calm down, but I just couldn't. I was paralyzed because of my fear, paralyzed that the guy would grab me through the window because he was so close. I didn't know what I'd do if he did because I had no weapon. I wanted to run to my parents' room. We had thick walls and they'd never be able to hear me when I screamed for them from the living room. I figured that I had to at least scream for my dad. Maybe he would hear me this time and he'd come out and check things out. No one would be there and I'd realize that all my fear was for nothing. So I started screaming, "Dad, Dad, help me, come here!" My dad never heard me, but the guy outside my window did. He started cackling evilly and said to me loudly, "Don't worry, I'll be your daddy. I'm right here, I'll be your daddy." His laugh sounded like he was gonna murder me. I jumped out of bed, screaming, and ran to my parents' room, which was locked. I banged on the door, and they opened it and were irritated that I woke them up. We never checked to see if the guy was outside. I guess my dad didn't believe me. But it was so terrifying. I'm 30 years old, and I'm still scared remembering that guy. So yeah, creepy guy at my window? Let's not meet. Number 2. To begin, I want to explain where I lived. We lived out in the foothills on 5 acres of land down a gravel road. We had horses and pigs and all that jazz. No houses close, however. You could cross a creek behind the house and over a small mountain/hill to a gated community. However, he would never want to go outside due to the mountain lions lurking around at night. Needless to say, other than our floodlights on the house, there were no lights around ever. Anyway, one night my dad was working late, which ironically never happened. My brother, myself, and my mom were home alone in our very large house. I was only around 6 years old, but I remember all of this very vividly. My brother is 7 years older than me, so he was roughly 12. For whatever reason, I was sleeping in my parents' room with my mom that night, and my brother in his room. All of a sudden, my brother comes in, bursts into the bedroom, around 3 a.m., slams and locks the bedroom door, and says that he's hearing someone whispering his name and telling him to come out and play, and that it sounds like it's coming from either the closet or the window. They're both right next to each other. My mom thinks that my brother's either dreaming or that his neighbor friend across the creek is messing around with him, especially since our rooms were on the second floor. She makes us wait in her room and goes to check things out. When she walks in, she hears some shuffling noises towards the window and hurries back and locks the bedroom door. She calls the police, who show up around 20 to 30 minutes later, while we sit quietly staring out her window to see if we see anything. The police search the house and property and find nothing but roof shingles in our front yard, which is where my brother's room faces. Side note, our house had a small little awning over the front porch, so someone could easily walk on it in front of our second-story windows facing the front yard. However, they warned us that there are many hiding places around the house, so they will monitor the house for a bit. Around 6 a.m., my dad gets home to police sitting outside. He informs them that he saw a man jogging down our gravel road towards the main road wearing all dark clothing. They thought it was strange since, number one, you don't ever go jogging early morning when mountain lions feed. Yes, this is a real thing where I'm from, and attacks and sightings happen often. And two, he was not in any type of workout gear. Turns out they caught the guy. He was trying to break into homes in the gated community and trying to lure kids into his car while walking home from the bus stop. Number 3. I was 5 years old when I met my first best friend in kindergarten. Ashley lived in my neighborhood and was just as shy as me, so we became fast friends when we were seated together for the first day of school. She came from a working-class family, same as mine, and our parents became close as well. I started sleeping over her house pretty much every weekend. We were inseparable. When we were in public together, everyone thought we were twins. We told each other absolutely everything. One night, she told me that she had a secret to tell me. I was surprised because I thought I knew everything about her. She started to tell me about her teenage neighbor who lived with his grandma. He would come over and play with her in this big playhouse that her dad had built her in the backyard. Her dad worked construction, so it was like a real little house, carpet and everything. I asked her if her parents knew, and she said no, and that he was her secret friend. She told me that he told her she couldn't tell anyone about him because he'd get in trouble. She complied because she had a little bit of a crush and looked up on him. She continued to tell me that he would come over in the middle of the night. Her room was on the ground floor, and if you opened her window, you could walk right into her room. She said he would knock on the window and then let himself in, and they would lay in bed and talk till early morning hours, and would always leave before her dad had to wake up in the morning. I, being very young, thought it was really cool she had an older friend, especially a cute older boy. I was sleeping over one night a week before her birthday, so we were talking about the party she was going to have. She mentioned that he was going to be there. I said that maybe it wasn't such a good idea since I was shy and scared to meet him, and he was supposed to be a secret. She said that her mom had made friends with his grandma and had invited them to the party. It was going to be a cookout since it was in the summer, and a lot of families were going to be there. Then she said that she wasn't supposed to tell me, but he told her that he had a plan for one of the games we would play. He said whoever lost musical chairs first, he was going to cut their eyeballs out with a knife that he always carried with him. I was instantly horrified. What if I lost first? She saw that I got scared, so she changed the subject, and I soon forgot about it. Her mom came in and tucked us in for the night. We laid in bed and kept talking until around 12:30. Everyone was already asleep. The lights were off, so you could see outside pretty well with the streetlights on. That's when I heard the knock on the window. I saw him looking right at me and smiling. I jumped up screaming and ran into her parents' room. They asked me what was wrong, but I couldn't tell them what happened. I was too scared. They called my parents, and my dad came and picked me up. Since I was a pretty shy kid, my dad didn't ask too many questions and just assumed that something stupid spooked me. I never told anyone, and I never went over to her house again. So, creepy secret teenage neighbor? Let's not meet. Number 4. So, about a year ago, my parents and I were offered to stay a week in a friend's cottage in northern Michigan. Of course, we accepted the offer and packed our things and brought our Great Dane with us. About 5 days into the trip, my parents went a few towns away to hit some bars and have fun. I didn't mind because I liked being alone a lot of the time. At around 12:30, my parents weren't home yet and my dog had started flipping out. He was running all over the house, growling and barking. Naturally, I'm super scared. I grabbed my pocket knife and barricaded the bedroom door. For about 10 minutes, my dog continues barking. When my dog stops barking, I get a call from my parents. They tell me that they're too drunk to drive home and are gonna stay at a motel nearby. I don't get a minute of sleep that night, and when I decided to save enough to get up, I noticed something that chilled me to the bone. The screens to the bedroom windows were cut. I burst out of the room to see that every screen in the cottage is cut. What I think happened is that some creep decided to try to break into the cottage through the doors originally. Since I'm careful about security, I made sure that those were locked. After the creep was unsuccessful with the doors, he cut the screens and tried to get in through the windows. It had been a hot night, so before my parents left, they turned on the AC and I locked the windows. I assumed that he made some sort of noise that woke up my dog, causing my dog to freak out. Then the creep must have left. I called my parents and then called the cops. The cops didn't find any trace of the guy, and as soon as they were done with the investigation, my family and I were out of there. So, to the guy who tried to break into the cottage my family was staying in, let's not meet. Number 5. At the time, my husband and I were living in the tiny garage apartment behind my dad's house. The apartment was a good distance away from the house, attached to the carport, a few meters away from the backyard gate. It was maybe around 12:30 a.m., and I was laying in bed. My husband was working nights and wasn't due home until 7 a.m. I hadn't fallen asleep yet. The room was dark, but very faintly lit by a security light in the backyard. Suddenly, I heard someone start to forcefully try to turn the doorknob. I flipped over and stared at the door, which was an arm's reach from the bed. Could it be my dad or my sister or stepmom wanting to talk to me at such an odd hour? I expected my fear to be assuaged shortly by the voice of one of my family members calling me through the thin wooden door and explaining themselves. But no one said anything. If it was one of my family, why didn't they just knock or ask to be let in? No way would they just try to force the door like this. I stayed silent. I laid on my stomach, staring straight at the doorknob and watched it jiggle back and forth as someone continued to try to jimmy the door open. It was a flimsy door with a simple lock in the middle of the knob, like a door meant for a room inside of a house, not at all like a heavy front door of a house. For maybe 30 seconds, I was too terrified to reach for my phone or to move at all. Pressing myself as flat against the bed as possible, as though that was going to protect me somehow, I reached out and snatched my phone and called my dad. I continued staring wide-eyed at the twisting doorknob as he groggily answered. I whispered in a frantic hiss. "Are you trying to get into my apartment? Could Kat or Susie try to get in? Someone's trying to open my door." My dad said, "Kat's in bed here with me. I'll go check on your sister." "No, she's in bed too. I'll be right out." During this conversation, the doorknob suddenly stopped turning. My dad and stepmom searched the property with flashlights and didn't find any sign of anyone. What I really hope happened was someone mistook the apartment for a storage shed and was going to try to burgle it, and then ran off when they heard a voice from inside. I hope burglary was the worst they intended. For me, this incident was truly terrifying. Hey guys, Basement Horrors here, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I know it's really short, and I said in the last video that I wanted them to be longer, But these ones were kind of hard to find. The last one wasn't even really in the category I wanted. But, you know, it was still a weird, creepy experience. So there you go. Now, make sure if you want to see more, like this video, and click on one of the suggestions on the side if you're on desktop. If not, just go into the suggestion bar, click on my channel. And if you're not subscribed, make sure you do that too. Also, the bottom suggestion, if you don't already know, is for my second channel. I just uploaded a video yesterday on there. So make sure you, well, not yesterday. By the time this is uploaded, it'll be a few days later. But just uploaded a video about a really weird kid from when I was in 3rd grade. So make sure you check that out. That's basically it for this video, guys. I'll see you on Friday, and until then, have a horrific day.